This is a UFC Fight Night recap of Edwards versus Brady. As you can see here to the right, I only got 5 out of 13. Unfortunately, this week I wasn't able to do my own research due to being busy at work. So, what I did instead was listen to a handful of other MMA YouTubers. And I must say, I did not get a lot of good input this week. Starting from the prelims, Fernandez versus Guram. Most people were very heavy on Guram. As you can see on the odds, he was minus 380. And also, he walked out with Ilya Taporia. So, all these things put together, I fell for this trap. And as far as the fight goes, Guram is a very slow starter. He does not take damage well. Every time he gets hit, he looks like he's about to get put out. There's a lot of looking that he does. Like he's looking for the perfect shot. And all while he's doing that, he's being landed on. But he is a tough fighter and he never gave up. On the other hand, Cal Fernandez is very aggressive, throws lots of calf kicks, has good fight IQ. Once Guram switched stance, Fernandez was right back at the calf kicks on the other leg. And in general, he throws a lot of strikes. And seems to me like he saw all the strikes coming back towards him. When Guram did throw, Fernandez was able to stay safe and didn't let much land on him. So this Fernandez fighter is very good. Next fight, Cal Lawren versus Nathan Fletcher. Lawren won by decision, and in my opinion, overall, it was a mid-fight. Lawren had a lot of control time with the wrestling, and the only impressive striking was at the end of round 3, which was done by Nathan Fletcher, which I thought might have won him the split decision, on top of him being the hometown kid. But surprisingly, it didn't. And he also walked out with a superstar in Paddy Pimblett, and he's the hometown fighter. But none of these things helped him win the decision, surprisingly. And the next fight, Shauna Bannon versus Pooja Tumar. Surprisingly, this fight was more exciting than most of the men fights the whole night. So shame on these dudes. Obviously, the biggest moments were the head kick by Pooja, but unfortunately, she couldn't capitalize and secure the finish. And good on Shauna Bannon showing heart and surviving and coming back to win by submission. Both of these girls did a good job. Next fight, Christian Leroy Duncan versus Andrei Pulayev. This was another lackluster fight. Duncan seemingly dominated the whole fight, but sadly couldn't put away Andre. In my opinion, it was a pretty sorry performance, especially with Duncan being such a heavy favorite. It shows a lack of urgency, in my opinion. And I just don't like that he couldn't put him away, and also seemed to me like he lacks the killer instinct to put someone away, especially with a newcomer, someone making their debut in the UFC. But on Andre's side, he was able to survive and not get finished by the experienced veteran in CLD. So that looks good for him. The next fight, Marcin Tybura versus Mick Parkin. This was a pretty even back and forth fight. Tybura seemed to pull away in the third, looking like the fresher fighter, throwing more. And surprisingly, he wasn't robbed. Mick Parkin looks like a strong fighter, and he looks like he has a good chin. He himself has decent cardio until the third. but it wasn't better than Tybura's. Perhaps he'll do better versus another opponent who doesn't have good cardio. And Loner Kavanaugh versus Felipe Dos Santos. Now, this was a great fight. Both fighters look sharp. And side note, Kavanaugh is also from England, apparently. I was fooled by Tapology because it said he's from China. So I don't know what the backstory behind that is, but he was the hometown guy, and he had great striking, great ground and pound, good takedowns. So this guy's the real deal. And Felipe himself looked good, but I have to mention he was cheating. He cheated a few times by grabbing the fence, and also he threw an illegal up kick to Kavanaugh at one point. Next fight, Jai Herbert versus Chris Padilla. Now this was a very close fight. Another fight with a lack of action from both fighters until the end of the final round. One thing that stood out was Padilla's control against the fence, but this he wasn't doing much with. He was just content holding and controlling him. Which was annoying. I don't like to see that. And I wouldn't have been surprised if they gave it to Jai at the end. Honestly, was surprised they didn't, because Jai gave Chris a nasty cut above his eye. And I think fights should come down to damage, and when there's a lack of action on both ends and one fighter ends up cutting someone that badly, I think they should be given the fight, given the victory. Next fight, Nathaniel Wood versus Morgan Charrier. One of the most annoying fights, because the whole week most people were saying Morgan was going to win. Even one person was like, oh, I hear that Morgan, look at how many losses he has. Okay, this was the... Oh, if you know who this person is, then you know. But, he's a professional, right? And he was annoyed by people saying this and was still picking Morgan. And I'll admit, I have more viewing history of Morgan than Nathaniel Wood, so I took his word for it amongst other people's word for it. But when the fight actually happened, Nathaniel Wood looked better everywhere, including on the feet, which was supposed to be Morgan's bread and butter. Nathaniel Wood almost had an early KO, and in general, Wood was slicker, quicker, just better movement everywhere. Head movement, foot movement, just... I thought Morgan was supposed to be the better striker, and he wasn't. I don't know if the knockdown in the beginning is what threw him off, but he didn't look good the entire fight. And he was mostly on the back foot. Nathaniel Wood is the better striker, and just you could tell he's the better mixed martial artist. Maybe that was the thing in this fight. Maybe it was the mixed martial arts striking that was, and the threat of being taken down, that threw off Morgan. But wow, this was another... Even though the odds are even down here, this was a domination by Nathaniel. He was a great fighter. Next, Chris Duncan versus Jordan Vucenic. You already know. Everybody riding Jordan. And going into this fight, I myself was already not hyped on Jordan due to his last performance. And I was just confused because Chris was coming in on a win streak. He was the veteran UFC fighter. And Jordan was supposedly this big favorite. even though he just lost his first UFC fight. Wow. And just as I thought, I mean, how could people be so high on this dude when he got smoked his last fight? It's ridiculous. So he got dropped bad in this fight and then he got submitted. And just I saw so very little from him offensively, like it's hard to even comment on his good attributes other than his tattoos. Ridiculous. This is why you need to do your own research. And I know I'm talking to myself here, but it's good to have a reminder that you can't trust these people who've supposedly been capping fights for years and years. You could come in and make your own decisions and give yourself a better shot at winning parlays by doing your own research. Next fight, Molly McCann versus Alexa Thainara. Molly McCann, what a can. She retired, whatever. Alexia came in on short notice and dominated her and submitted her easily. She had a nice celebration as well. If you know what I'm talking about, then you know. And in my opinion, Aylin Perez has some competition. Finally. I mean, these are the only two girls that I see celebrating like that. Next, Kevin Holland versus Gunnar Nelson. I feel Kevin won, and I feel that Kevin should have dominated more in this fight. I feel like if he had just been more like violent and just wailed on Gunnar in some of the positions he had, he could have put him away. But perhaps Gunnar's just that good that he made Kevin Holland look not good. Despite Kevin being such an active fighter and fighting some of the best competition in the UFC in the past. I don't know, but one of the things I did have in mind coming into this was that Kevin had never lost more than 2 fights in a row. So I did kind of think that he might win this fight or be given the victory. Like I thought maybe Gunnar was put in this position to put the hype back on Kevin. Because Gunnar's not an active fighter. So that was one of my theories. Next, Carlos Ulberg versus Jan Blachowicz. Close fight. Ulberg won a close fight. But where's the urgency in both fighters? I mean, especially Carlos, the younger lion in this division. Going up against a 42-year-old Jan who's coming off of double shoulder surgery. I don't know if this was I don't think this was a respect factor where he didn't want to knock out Jan. I think it was a skill issue fighting top competition. And I already knew that Jan's not one to win decisions. Even if he wins the fight, the judges seem to not want to give him decisions. He's never on the good side of those, unfortunately, for him. But as far as a prediction, in retrospect, this was a easy pick. But just surprised by the performance. And surprised, but at the same time not surprised at Jan not getting the nod. Anyway, in the final fight, Leon Edwards versus Sean Brady. This was actually a good fight, despite all the grappling. And this is because you could tell Sean Brady was actually hunting the submissions the entire time. He's a beast. I mean, at times, if you don't know what you're looking at, it can seem like he was just trying to hold him down. But I mean, to I guess to the experienced UFC viewer, you could tell he was advancing positions and hunting submissions the whole time. And when he was at a point where he was perhaps like stalled, he would open up with a striking, forcing Leon to move from his defensive position. And once he did, then Sean would advance to a new position, hunting something else. Um, Impressive performance. Anyway, that's the recap for this week. Going into this next week, I'll be doing my own research first, making my own picks, then creating my own long shot parlays based on that research. Then later in the week at work, I like to listen to other YouTubers and their opinions and research about who's gonna win and lose, and then I'll combine that with my own knowledge that I researched on my own, and then I'll formulate some additional long shot parlays. So that's how I do things here. Good luck to everybody. Hopefully some of you out there win some big money with long shot parlays. See you later in the week.